Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hoops Summit, the evolution of component technology in digital construction. I'm Robert Byer. I'm the Hoops product marketing manager at Techsoft 3D, and I'll be hosting the session today. But first of all, we're excited you could join us. It's a great time to be involved in the digital construction space. It's a space we're continuing to put a lot of our time and energy into. So we're really looking forward to having this conversation today, and we hope everyone here is as well. Joining me, we have Techsoft 3D CTO Gavin Bridgman, as well as Hoops graphic product manager Eric Holgren, who will be leading our conversation today. Also joining us is Dev Guerra, CTO with our partner Asite, who will be talking a bit about their application and their utilization of our toolkits. So again, welcome everyone, and thanks for being here. Here's a quick look at our agenda, kind of what you can expect from today's session. We're going to kick things off with an overview of Techsoft 3D. We'll talk a bit about who we are, what we do, and why we're in this market. Next, we'll discuss Hoops SDKs for digital construction. So specifically, we'll be talking about how our tools have evolved and are currently evolving in this space. And then we'll see some demos. So we have some great demos lined up from our technical team. And we'll move on to our partner highlight featuring Asite. This is what I call Hoops in the wild. So you'll get to see some real world use cases of how our tools are being utilized and the types of applications that are being built with them. And then finally, we'll wrap the session up with some time for Q&A. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. This session will be recorded and made available to you afterwards. And as you see, we will have time for Q&A today. So please feel free to submit any questions you have in the Q&A feature, and we'll get to those at the end of today's session. And that is it from me for right now. Gavin, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you and let us get started.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you everybody for taking an hour out of your day to talk to us about digital construction. There's going to be a lot of information coming at you today, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. But I know many people in the webinar today are familiar with Techsoft. I know there's some who aren't, and so I thought I'd spend a little bit of time of introducing you to the company. We're Techsoft 3D. We've been providing toolkits, SDKs into the engineering world for 25 years. In fact, this year is our 25th anniversary. The areas where we believe we're world leaders, and we certainly aspire to be that, is in the areas of CAD data access and engineering visualization. And I'll talk a little bit more about those in a little bit. And we have hundreds of partners who have built thousands of applications that are sitting on millions of desktops and computers around the world. If you kind of look on the left side, it kind of mentions some of these partners, some of the kind of really high profile applications that are in the kind of millions of seats out there are SolidWorks eDrawings application and Autodesk's Design Review. But we also have some really strong solutions in the digital construction space, RIB, Bentley, and Assemble. Jonathan will just show you some of these. And of course, we have Dev from Asite, who's going to go into a little more detail around his product. The size of the company, we're about 120 people. As you can imagine, as a company that provides toolkits to other software companies, the vast majority of our staff are around building software. I mean, about 70 developers. So that's who we are. Probably more interesting to people is why Techsoft exists. And we really get excited about the role that engineering software makes in the world. We have this joke internally where we talk about the world doesn't need another Candy Crush. It does need software that allows us to build more efficient buildings, and that allows fuel efficiency to increase with machines. And starting to take 3D printing to be able to use in the construction pace, which can maybe make affordable housing. These are the things that get us excited to come to work each day. And certainly that's kind of what we're talking about today, is the role that technology can play in the digital construction space. To kind of talk a little bit more about the products, a lot of what we provide is while we have core technology that solve very specific problems, at the end of the day, our technology gets used in an application. And an application generally has some kind of workflow that it's tried to solve. And I think a lot of our success as a company is, though we are very proud of our products, we really think of them in the context of the workflow. So if you kind of think of the engineering as software market, generally what people are doing is they oftentimes are bringing in a model, and sometimes they're constructing it from scratch, but a lot of times they're bringing in a model from elsewhere. They're visualizing it. Then once they can get the model, they maybe are modifying it or modeling it. Oftentimes there's simulation that fit in that space, and then oftentimes they're generating export. And these are the domains where we focus on. If we were kind of to look at that general workflow from an application, if you kind of think of where our products fit, on the import side of things, we allow you to read CAD data without needing the CAD formats. You notice the phrase that we use here, MCAD, which is mechanical, BIM is building and construction, and DCC is digital content creation. We are starting to see more data making it out of engineering departments and making it into the mainstream, and digital content creation applications are the ones that do that. So that's one thing we solve. The second area is actually viewing this data. And this is very interesting from a visualization standpoint. You know, a lot of what's driving actually the hardware is the gaming industry, but gaming is very 3D centric. When you get into the engineering space, it's a very different domain where 2D is very important, granular selection, highly tessellated models. These are all the things that are important in the engineering space. And when we look at kind of visualization, there's kind of a horizontal aspect to it. And the horizontal is kind of moving between different devices. So you have desktop devices, you have mobile devices, you have, recently we're starting to have headset and augmented reality and virtual reality. These are all different devices that we allow people to power. We also can take advantage of the 3D capabilities that are now available in the browser. So we really do allow people to take and bring engineering visualization to all these devices. And then we have an extra area of specialization, which is around the needs of simulation visualization. So this is the idea where you take results files, and if you want to maybe do, wind flow analysis across a surface, generating vector flow lines, and these kind of things are things that we do. So import and visualization through partnerships. We have some modeling technologies, which I'll introduce to you in a little bit. We also, in the innovation space, we have some CA measures and solvers. We won't talk too much about those, but as simulation becomes a bigger and bigger part of what happens in engineering, that's an important part of our product portfolio. And then the last part is generating those reports in the end. And we have a number, we have tools 3D as part of those. If I was this is kind of the functionality. If I was to put names to these products, you can kind of see them mentioned here. Hoops is generally the products that we build in-house. VKI and Citron are our technologies that are focused at the simulation space. And then we have these important partnerships with companies that provide complementary technologies. Siemens is one of those companies who we have a great relationship with. They have a modeling engine that's widely used in the manufacturing space. And we have a partnership with them that has their technology connected to our technology. And then we have a relationship with Polygonica, who have a modeling engine that's primarily targeted at dealing with tessellated data that has particular value in the 3D printing space. We also have a long-standing relationship with Autodesk. And so we have their DWG read-write toolkit integrated into our environment. And they also have an OEM flavor of both AutoCAD and Inventor. And since we're a company that knows how to interact with a developer community, we're the exclusive channel for each one of those. So that's all the products presented kind of in a separate standpoint. What's really important for us as we kind of think of this workflow is that a lot of the difficult problems to solve are connecting these things together. So for example, if you want to load in a Revit file as quickly as Revit can do that, well, our file readers and our visualization toolkits need to be connected together. And as you can imagine, when it comes to engineering software, just the 3D model on its own isn't enough. We often need the model tree to be connected to these things. So when we look at these components, we have this workflow centric view of things. A lot of what we're focused on is making sure the connections between these technologies are working. And that's what gave birth to these platforms. So each one of these technologies are bundled together, which really means the starting point for you, if you're developing let's say a web application, really within a couple of hours of playing around with our technology, you have a web application which can take in a Revit file and display it in a web browser and browse the model tree. This is where the platform has a lot of value. So that's a quick introduction to who Techsoft is and our technology offering. What I wanted to kind of move the conversation to now was talking about the digital construction market. And before I hand things off to Eric to kind of get into more details of the nuts and bolts of what we've done to support this market, I just want to talk about the why. And the building construction market has been a market that we've served for a number of years. And you know, for example, Dev is going to introduce his product, and we've been working with A-Site for approximately 10 years. But it's really in the last 5 years that we've really started to really focus on it and look at these different use cases that our partners are trying to solve, and really try and fill out the gaps and make it as easy as possible to solve. And some of the reasons we kind of focus on that region, on this market, was that this is a massive market that has, you know, through the use of technology, we can really have a profound impact on the world. And if you kind of look at, that sounds lofty, but people are, as a society, we are demanding that our buildings are more efficient, and we're demanding that they're more ergonomic. You know, and technology, for example, through IoT, connect to a digital model, you can have, you know, continuous feedback coming from a device where you can optimally run an energy plant. So there's a lot of interesting problems to be solved with the birth of, you know, if you look at augmented reality and what Microsoft talk about, a lot of the use cases that they look at is in the building and construction space, so that somebody can walk into a building and see, you know, take all the IoT data coming in real time, see the pipework behind the walls. These are all these technologies really can have a dramatic impact on what is one of the biggest industries in the world. So that was one of the first reasons. The second one was that it was an actual area where we had a lot of experience. So we had domain expertise. You know, the market that we were initially focused on was mainly in manufacturing, but a lot of the problems that they need to solve there are the same problems over here. People need to be able to read CAD data without needing the CAD system to be there. We profoundly understood the need for that and why that was. They need to do visualization and have the ability, as I mentioned earlier, 2D. 2D is hugely important. It's even more important in the building construction space than it is in the manufacturing space. So being able to have 2D work with 3D, have these things connected together. These were all problems that we were familiar with. And then this kind of recent birth of all these new, you know, platforms. If you know, on you know, a cloud is a platform, but also looking at desktop to mobile, and you look at augmented reality and virtuality. These were all areas that we had some domain expertise. So we really felt a lot of our already expertise was very applicable to this market, and that we had a number of partners already in this space that we could really make a much more compelling solution by focusing on. So that was the second area. And then the third area was, this is what we do. You know, we love the idea of engaging with developer communities. We love solving some of the more difficult problems that they have, and generally making engineering software more accessible to a broader audience of people. So the thought of, when we kind of go back to that fueling innovation and trying to, you know, have software do impactful things, building and construction seemed like a fantastic place where we could make some of the more lower level problems solved, so that if you wanted to build a quantity takeoff application, you could focus on that quantity takeoff side of things rather than have to worry about how do I read in a Revit file? How do I display that on a mobile device? So those three reasons were really the big reason behind us wanting to really focus on this as a market. So I'm going to hand it over to Eric, and Eric's going to talk through some of the things that we did over the last 5 years. Jonathan's going to give some demos of it, and then Eric's going to talk a little bit about the future. There's a lot of information coming in your way, but hopefully you'll find it interesting, and certainly the demos are really cool to see. Take it away, Eric.
All right. Thanks, Gavin. So like Gavin said, we're going to talk about what we've done over the last few years to address the needs of the building and construction market. As he said, we've actually been in the space for over 10 years with our various partners, but of course, as we have focused on it more, we've brought a lot more functionality. I'm going to talk about all of that across the entire Hoops product line. The number one item that we could call out is expanding our format support. So we added support for IFC with the Exchange translators, but originally even that was mostly focused on geometry and then also the model tree. Since then, we've added support through Exchange for DWG and Revit, and we've also added support for SketchUp through Visualize. We've improved our IFC reader, bringing in more metadata and also more entities. Gavin called out how important 2D was inside building and construction. And it is interesting to note that while manufacturing has moved away and they're putting more and more information inside the 3D, it's still so critical that you have 2D information inside building and construction. Plans have to be put out as drawings. It's requirements in a lot of cases. And so we had to ensure that our 2D output and our display was enough. So some examples of what we've done is we've greatly improved our support for 2D DWG drawings. That includes better performance, layer support, and the drawing quality. But we've also worked on our export of 2D. So for instance, we've made significant improvements to our 2D PDF output, which is again, so critical inside building and construction. Some of those improvements include improved support for text. It's now actually inserted into the PDF as text, so you can search for items that you need. It's copyable, so you can paste it out. But we also improved the drawing quality and the size of the output PDFs. Finally, we improved our ability to bring models together and also to deal with larger and larger ones. In particular, this is required for things like model federation workflows, where you have to bring in multiple different models, which could be from different floors or could be from different systems of that same building, and have them all work seamlessly in one session. An example of some of the improvements we've done to provide better support for very large models is a new communicator sprocket inside Hoops Visualize, which lets a Visualize-enabled application connect to a communicator's streaming server on the back end, so it can load in these massive models into that Visualize application. Now, it's not just about functionality. As Gavin said, we've also spent a lot of time working on supporting the workflows around building and construction. And one key difference there from our focus on engineering or manufacturing is on that user experience. You know, a simple example is very few people inside building and construction want to spin a model upside down so they can look at it that way. Whereas that's a totally normal operation inside manufacturing. So one of the big things that we did was focus on providing a much more tailored experience for your users. Things like building and construction focused navigation, having better walk operators, being able to easily go upstairs, being able to toggle whether they should be able to walk through walls or not. Functionality like adding a 2D mini map, which shows your location on the floor for IFC. We also added measurement tools, which don't require BREP data in order to be able to take the different calculations that your partners need. And you'll see some demos of all of this. We added improvements to point cloud support, both inside Visualize. We added the capabilities for out-of-core point clouds, but we also added support for larger and larger point clouds inside Hoops Communicator. We added support for models that contain GIS coordinates so that there weren't any issues interacting with it, no rendering problems. We've added an animation engine, which, while it seems like that's focused on the manufacturing side, it's actually very useful and it makes it very easy to build out a 5D simulation of your project over time. Finally, we've continued to improve our rendering quality, and that includes adding support for physically based rendering across the entire Hoops product line. So that was all user experience. We've also worked on expanding the data model, making it more flexible and extending it. And really what that comes down to is adding more support for the metadata, which is so critical to building and construction workflows, especially in applications like quantity takeoff, like Gavin mentioned. It's really important here that we let you get the data your customers need for their workflows, not just look at the geometry and be able to work with that. Finally, we really started working on supporting collaboration through the existing standards. We started off with the BCF file format so that you could have multiple users working together, looking at the models and collaborating together through that BCF file format. Okay, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jonathan. He's going to show you some of these improvements that we've made over the last few years.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So let's take a look at first a few of the different partners that are working with Techsoft to bring different AEC applications to market. So here we see RIBS i2 5D visualizer, which looks at construction planning across time as well as domain. Those are the two other dimensions. We also have Assemble Systems. This isn't unlike RIB, which is a desktop application. This is a cloud-based and browser-based application that allows you to track progress and do planning. And then also FieldWire. This is an iOS mobile application for navigating your 3D architectural plans, as well as bringing in metadata and enabling measurement for takeoff. We'll be looking at A-Site in a little bit and see what they have as well. So these are actual commercial applications. We also wanted to showcase just some of the different demos that we've made here in-house. So they're not commercial applications, but things that we've spun up just to demonstrate different features of our Hoops platform, both web and for desktop and mobile. So this one was done with a partner company, in fact, Sana, sana.io. And we're looking at a Revit data set here, a large technical school, and being able to show different ways of viewing the data. So both through the object structure, as well by exporting the Revit views, we're able to navigate to those, as well as by category. So as you categorize here all the structural data, we're able to just visualize that. You might have additional information, let's say timeline and construction information on how this is going to get built up. So however you want to visualize your data, you're able to drive the 3D view doing that. So it could be this additional timeline information. Gavin mentioned that 2D is just as important as 3D. So here we have two different views of Hoops Communicator, a 3D view side by side with a 2D view. We're able to navigate those simultaneously, as well as be able to link them together in intelligent ways, mostly using unique IDs. So we're able to tie that those objects with additional data. So it could be in other drawings, or it could be in your own database with your own data. Lastly, we can search. In this case, we're searching all the objects for, let's say we want all of the walls across the different domains. And we can do text-based searches and drive the visualization as well. So display all the walls and kind of walk through them. Measurement is also really important. So we have point-to-point measurement, we have edge and arc measurement, and this is measured on the exact CAD data, and those tools are available both here in a web browser, but also on a desktop device or a mobile device. Multi-line measurement, so adding all of those line segments up. We also have angle measurement from line segment to line segment or face to face, and then also area measurement. So here we can measure the area of this kitchen floor and be able to get an accurate representation of that. Other navigation tools include here, you see a 2D mini map or a 2D floor plan that's automatically generated from the IFC file. So the 3D model, the IFC file, we generate this floor plan, add a little avatar in there that allows you to navigate both in the 3D and the 2D view, and you can zoom in the 2D view and do a lot of different things there as well. Large models are really important. It seems that data is getting bigger and bigger, as well as more and more detailed. So here's a 163 million triangle DWG data set. We have animation engines. So here's a large factory with hundreds of robots, all animated. And we can also zoom into particular machines or aspects, let's say the ductwork or HVAC system, and be able to get the actual CAD model for that as well, bringing together, in this case, mechanical CAD and building construction data. You see more and more point clouds, larger and larger point clouds. And so we have an out of core engine, meaning that there's point cloud data gigabytes worth on your hard drive. And we're able to stream into visualize that and kind of stream in as you're looking at different areas. And then lastly, the same thing, we do that with CAD data. So we could have a streaming server, a communicator streaming server, streaming data down to a mobile device or a desktop application that kind of starts to really blend the world between native development and cloud development. And really, no matter what type of operating system or device you're using, this is an HTC Vive. We're able to support that both desktop, mobile, web, and AR and VR, and bring your data in and navigate it and have the tools available, as well as showing metadata too for all of the objects that we have there as well. So just kind of where we've been, what we've been doing, the different file formats we support, but what are some of the new things that we're doing, especially around the information side of building and construction. So let's take a look at this. This is an IFC model, 3D model, 12, 13 floor apartment building. We have our mini map there. But what we really want to do is dig into the metadata and the information attached to these objects. And so we have supported for some time now IFC data and the properties associated with different objects. And we're going to kind of show this within Hoops Communicator, first kind of where we are, and then also where we're going. So here's a BCF file that's associated with this. It brings us to a very specific view. Here we have a hallway and a wall. Kind of we're in the kitchen hallway area. We can select on that wall and we can get all of the IFC properties associated with it. And so that's we've had this for quite some time, like the material or the owner history of that particular object. So this is nothing new, but there's a tremendous amount of additional data that are associated with this object in the IFC file. And one of those is the idea of a space boundary. So this is an IFC concept that shows what is this wall, what spaces is it associated with? Well, we have 2 bathrooms, a mechanical area, and then 2 hallways. And we can kind of step through that by selecting on one of those areas. We kind of get the idea that this wall is part of this area, and then show the outline here in the 3D view. And then also, because we have this 3D viewer, we can do things like isolate just that one particular area that we may be interested in, let's say this hallway, or we can navigate into it and say, what is that hallway associated with, and all of the aggregations that it's associated with and the space boundaries that it's part of, to kind of walk through this model in a different way. And so you see here all the space boundaries that hallway is associated with, and what it contains. And here we isolate that particular part of geometry, so we get rid of all the other floors, and we're just interested in these walls associated with that space boundary. Now there's a lot more. This is coming in Service Pack 2 in July, but there's a lot more even than we're showing here. And so our CAD data access toolkit is called Hoops Exchange, and it can generate an XML file that contains all of that relationship data. Some of it we're showing here. We built, again, this is a demo, so we built an additional small UI here on the side to start navigating that XML data. What's pretty common is you get all that additional data, and you may have your own as well. So to augment this as well, you put it in a database. We've done that here. So we took the XML data, put it in a database, and now we're querying that on the server, and we're looking for different relationships. So another IFC concept is this idea of a path. And so how is this wall connected to different walls within this particular floor? So we can look at all the connected paths associated with that. And again, isolate here, in this case, all the walls, all the paths associated with that for this one particular floor. This allows us to isolate not just walls, but we'll see in a minute, HVAC ductwork, and kind of navigate categorically your data, your 3D data, given all of this connected metadata. Another relationship that we're making available is this idea of openings within void elements, or the relationship between openings and void elements. So here we have a wall. So that wall is just like a rectangular prism, but in that there are these cutouts for the windows. And so we can provide the data associated with that. And that allows us to support some more advanced workflows showing what is cut out from our different solid objects, and again, how they're related to one another. Not only that, but we can select, let's say, another wall here, the adjacent wall, and say for these void elements, these holes, what is the construction geometry for that? And so in just a second, we're going to show those different pieces of geometry, not visible normally, right? So it's not part of my model, but it is contained there in the IFC file, and then we're able to use that as well for further analysis. And so there you have kind of those windows now, the construction geometry for that. So let's look at a different data set now, a kind of a large multi-story hospital. Again, it has a BCF file associated with it, so we can kind of zoom into this one particular area. And we can select again on this ductwork, and we can ask for the relationships and the groupings that are associated with that, which include these exit ports, which actually aren't in the visible geometry. So it's the way this file is constructed, you can't see those ports. It's not being displayed. However, we have access to that information. We can kind of dig deeper and show it to you. And because this is a very large data set, we can navigate again through all of that HVAC system, turning the rest of the model into transparency, or we call it our X-ray mode. And now we can kind of walk through the HVAC system throughout this larger model and be able to navigate it using that metadata. So some exciting things already there when it comes to this informational aspect, as well as more exciting things to come in our Service Pack 2 release. Eric, what else can we look forward to in upcoming releases as well?
Great question, Jonathan. So let's talk about that here. Right off the bat, one thing that we are working on in the upcoming months is expanding our BIM format support even more. We're going to look at adding 2 new file format importers. That includes Navisworks and MicroStation. Those are our top 2 requested formats inside this space. We're going to be continuing to improve our rendering quality and are adding some additional modes. So in Service Pack 2 with Hoops Communicator, you're going to see some building and construction rendering modes, including conceptual shading. And our partners have been requesting that so that their users can have the same kind of experience in certain use cases that they get with the original authoring applications. Of course, we're going to continue improving the quality and the realism of our rendering for the graphics toolkits for better runtime appearance, but also for improved image generation. We're also going to continue exposing new AR advancements. Gavin talked substantially about the need for AR in these markets. We get plenty of requests around it, so we're looking at improving our mobile AR for applications using Visualize, but we're also getting requests for browser-based augmented reality, mostly on mobile devices, but that would be using Hoops Communicator. And then, of course, we're still looking to support HoloLens 2, as that really is the industrial leader. As far as workflow improvements, we're going to continue to work on making our data model more flexible and making it more extended. In particular, Jonathan called out some improvements that are coming in Service Pack 2 around that richness of the BIM relationship data model. You know, as he said in Service Pack 2, we focused on the spatial relationships, but in upcoming releases, we're going to continue adding more of those different relationship types. In addition, we're actually going to be adding semantic definition for certain kinds of entities like pipes and ducts, so that it's not just the geometry that we're reading in through there. And then one other big project that we want to make headroad in is improving the connection between the 2D and 3D entities, because that really is so critical in these workflows. So we're going to really try to make that as easy as possible for your application to tie those two different data sets together. We're of course going to continue working on improving our scalability, both for 2D and 3D. We know that federation workflows are just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. Models get bigger, and add in point clouds. You know, previously we had people saying, "Oh, I have half a gigabyte of point cloud data." We know that people are already tossing around terabytes. So we have to be able to scale up with that, not just each on their own, but being able to display these enormous point clouds along with the actual geometry from the model. Finally, we do have some work coming up to support BIM editing workflows. We talked about BIM collaboration through BCF, but what we're talking about here is two additional ways of supporting collaboration or editing. The first one is being able to export from a design application out to an IFC file so that that can then be federated into a larger model. So we're adding an IFC writer to Exchange. Then we're also going to be adding support for round tripping or enrichment workflows. The idea being that you can pull together all of these different models. You can check to make sure that everything is correct or as designed. You could fix missing entities or edit information for a part or a model. And then you could take all of that, export it back out to IFC. And of course, you want to export not just the geometry or the structure, but we also need to pass along all of that important metadata, all of the attributes that we know are so critical to this sector. So there you have it. I know that was a lot of stuff very quickly. I'm going to pass it back over to Gavin. You're muted. Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. And again, thanks to everybody for coming in. We're going to have Dev give an introduction to his products and talk a little bit about his products. But I know there's a lot of information that's come at you in the last 30 minutes or so. But please rest assured that one of the problems that we are trying to solve is make it very easy for you to build applications for this market. If you look at this URL that's kind of on this page, it will also be coming across in your chat place. That's a place that you as a developer, if you want to gain access to this technology and try and build an application, we really do expect within a day or so that you're at a place where you're bringing in data, you're viewing data, and you can start building the functionality that you need on top of that to start building the next great app for the digital construction market. So thanks again. And with that, I'll hand things over to Dev, who'll talk a little bit about A-Site and give a demo of his application. Take it away, Dev.
Hi everyone. My name is Devendra Gera. I'm the CTO at A-Site. So I'm going to be talking about A-Site platform and A-Site CBIM in particular, as this is the part of our platform which uses Hoops technologies. A-Site and Hoops, we go back a long way. We started working with Hoops, more than a decade back. So yeah, next slide. So about A-Site. So A-Site was formed back in 2001 with the vision of connecting people and helping the world build better. And our mission is to become world's leading digital transformation platform, connecting the physical, digital, and human. Platform overview. I'll just take few moments here. I don't want to go into too much details here. The slide, the platform, our platform is divided into three main areas. The top part shows how the users interact with our platform. So via the main web platform, async, which syncs data between your desktop or laptop and the ASICT cloud, and Adorable Field, which is our mobile application. The middle part shows all the product families which we have, starting with supply chain management, and then the project portfolio management, asset performance management, and ASICT ecosystem. Bottom is all the common components which form the basis of our platforms globally. So ASICT CBIM, now that I've given the big picture of the platform, I'll just elaborate a little bit more on ASICT CBIM. So CBIM in ASICT CBIM stands for Collaborative Building Information Modeling. And it allows the whole supply chain to interact around a centralized BIM, which runs on top of IFC, which is an ISO standard. ASICT CBIM is an enterprise class true model server in the cloud, meaning that when the model data is uploaded and when we federate the model, it's not just the view part which we federate at an object level, and you can have object level versioning available, which is done via our proprietary in-memory hashing algorithm, meaning that you can export the merged model back, which can be then imported into any BIM authoring tool. So just going back here, so we have comprehensive audit trail, which I'll show in the demo in a bit. The process diagram, basically, it shows how model data can be uploaded via different means, via our web app or via different plugins such as Revit plugin, which we have, as well as our Navisworks plugin syncs the data which is created or the issues which are created within the Navisworks platform. They get synced with our cloud platform, and as Eric said, we're looking forward to support native support of Navisworks data, which would be great. A lot of our customers ask for that, and as well as the connectivity between the 2D and the 3D world, which would be great to have available on our platform. So ASICT BIM journey, starting from back in 2002 right to 2021, where we have become the first BSI kite mark for BIM compliant software. Digital twin, so again tightly integrated with the CBIM world, as we have been discussing about getting the data, telemetry data from IoT, the Azure IoT hub. So the ASICT platform is majority of the ASICT platform is hosted on Azure, with our DR sites being in AWS. So we're looking to leverage that platform as well. But the ASICT digital twin integrates with the physical infrastructure, provides up-to-date data throughout the life cycle. So you can generate, for example, work orders for specific assets for specific locations, provide detailed descriptions of preventive maintenance work, as well as track incidents on particular assets within the digital twin. The 3D viewer integration which we have, so our main use case is integration with the Hoops communicator, where the server sends the CAD geometry via stream cache to the client machine, which performs 3D rendering via WebGL. So communicator and exchange essentially. So let's see the demo. So if I jump to the viewer component, So this is the main page which renders the model on the platform, ASIGHT platform. The left-hand side shows the model tree, and then there are various functional tools which are available in the ribbon, as well as we have options such as the object manager, the view manager, commenting, the apps, which you can be, if you want to raise an RFI or you want to raise a tender based on, model objects, that can be done as well. So yeah, if I just, click on an entity within the viewer, it will highlight, the object which is selected here in the model tree, which comes from the ASIGHT code base. Or I can even, fire off commands, from within the tree. So I want to focus on a particular object, or I can go into the object types. So there, what it happens is it will just group all the slabs in this case, and it will highlight that particular slab. And here, if I can go into view object details, so it brings all the details of that object, as well as all the 2D drawings. So you can essentially add more 2D data to an object, and I can then also view that 2D drawing which is connected with that object, which is opened in our 2D viewer. So you can have full workflows around the 2D drawings, and as well as the audit history of when those 2D drawings were associated. But we also have the full audit history of what happened when, who viewed the model, and who created comments, etc. And then if I talk about all the other options which are available in the ribbon, you can basically, as we saw before, we can associate the 2D plan when I'm either walking through the model, or using the orbit mode. As I change the floor, the plan also changes, which is awesome. Go back to the home setting, and then various rendering options which we have, various measurement options which we have. So linear measurement, angular measurement, area measurement, and then we have all the different types of markup tools available. So I can define the color of the markup or the thickness of the markup, and I can then create a comment against that markup, which then gets assigned to the supply chain, and it provides the collaborative options around that. You can then also have all the cutting planes, which you might want to look at the model from that perspective. You can assign colors to individual objects, which if you want to see what all colors which were assigned. And then you can also explode the model, which then lets you basically look at details of a particular entity. Go back to the original form. And then one of my favorite features is the model compare. So before we go into model compare, so this particular model is a federated view. So if I just look at all the different work sets which are assigned to this federated model. So there's an architectural work set, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, structural. So this model is pretty heavy, and it's collecting data from a lot of revisions. And then each work set can have what we call is a document reference, which is like a unique model file, which then can have multiple revisions. So you can turn on and off particular revision. So this functionality, model compare, what it does is it allows you to compare between, say, two architectural model versions which I've uploaded. So I can select my base version is version 1, and the target version is version 3. and I can run this model compare, which would model compare. So here, what I can do is, sorry, there's a problem with my internet connection. What we can do is we can look at what all entities were added into the target when I'm comparing, or if I want to see what objects were modified. So if I just look at this, I can then select how does it look like in the base version versus the target version. So you can see what has changed, or I can select the base model, so it will show me what is modified, what is removed, what is unchanged. It won't show me added because all the entities were added in the target. So if I click on target, it will show me what's added, what's modified, and removed was again from the base model, and what's unchanged. And then we have different options here to build a list of objects. So from my model compare or from my object selection, I can build different lists, and using those lists, I can then create an RFI or non-conformance report or health and safety incident, and I can report and collaborate around those selected objects. And similarly, we have this commenting module, so you can raise markups and raise comments for collaboration. You can create apps, so as I said, RFI, tender, and you can configure your own apps within our platform, which then can be assigned to this model space. Quickly, one another feature which I would like to show is how the platform is integrated with Navisworks. So if I jump into the Navisworks screen, so what it does is you can create issues within Navisworks, which are then basically created on the ASIGHT platform. So I can go into a particular issue. It will highlight the view which was captured when the issue was created, and I can create comments on that issue. I can run workflows, and those issues, they get actually created on the ASIGHT platform itself. So if you look at this model here, so those issues are, you can see all the issues are reflected here. So again, when I open that issue, it zooms into the view which was created when the issue was created, and then I can again make some changes. I can say, okay, this issue is resolved, and I can say, okay, submit. And if you go back into the Navis workflow, and there I can see that the issue is resolved. So it is synced. It is a two-way sync between via BCF. It is sync between Navisworks and the ASIGHT cloud platform. Yeah, I think those were the high-level features which I wanted to demo. Gavin, it's yeah, whirlwind tour of the ASIGHT CBIM platform. But yeah, if anyone is interested in more details, don't hesitate to email me directly, dgera@asight.com, or visit our website, asight.com. Thank you.
There we are. Dev, thank you so much. We gave you a limited amount of time, and you got a lot of great information out in that brief period. We have reached the Q&A portion of today, so let's dive into your questions. I know we've had a few come into the chat already, but if you'd like to ask anything else, please submit those either Q&A or via the chat, and we'll get to those. But let's visit that first question here. Jonathan, I believe you elaborated on it in the chat here, but if you'd care to talk a bit more, the question was, what's the difference between other construction CAD systems and this tool? So this was asked during the Hoops presentation.
Yeah, and I wanted to make sure that this was answered for everybody, not just the one questioner. So what a great question, right? So Revit and AutoCAD certainly are some of the premier CAD systems that are generating data. Navisworks is more of a large model viewer. Dev did a great job kind of showing how he uses our tools to build a custom application. And that's really what we're talking about is the Techsoft provides a base layer of functionality, software tools that allow you to build a very specialized application that fills a lacking need in the building and construction market. Many of these are not generating CAD data. So most of the cases in which we are working with companies like Asite or Assemble, the CAD data has already been created by a CAD package. We're just providing a view into it without having to have a seat of, let's say, Navisworks. Like not everybody's going to have a seat of that, but you can still view the tickets being generated there and have kind of this round trip way of communicating back and forth with a very light viewer on desktop or mobile or within a cloud context. So that's the big difference. Whatever you can dream up, we can assist you to build. That's the other thing. So you're not confined to let's say the Autodesk ecosystem, but really you're creating your bespoke software to fill a market need. If anybody else has, Gavin or Eric, want to add to that, feel free to.
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that, Jonathan. The next question I have here is a bit of a broad question. It's really for anyone on the panel. But are we seeing more cloud development in the building space versus native application development? Is there sort of a trend happening here?
Like I would say in general, I think we're seeing across the industry a move towards the cloud. And in the building and construction industry, where it's particularly relevant is the whole trend is putting more and more information into the CAD model. You heard both Eric and Dev talk about federated models. So this is aggregating more and more content together. So the premise of infinite storage and infinite computing on the cloud really makes that attractive. So we're certainly seeing a big move towards that. And what we see a lot of people is they really have an abstraction from the back end, the data, the cloud computing. For a lot of people, particularly in the engineering world, is putting their data model up to the cloud and having a variety of devices who are connecting to that. So you heard Eric talking about streaming and some of these capabilities for getting the relevant visualization data down quickly to a client. So we're certainly seeing it. I would say now roughly 50% of our new development products have a significant part of the architecture living on the cloud. So yes, it absolutely is relevant.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that, Gavin. All right, and that does it for all the questions we have coming in. We're about out of time. So we're going to wrap everything up, but I do want to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to thank the panelists, thank everyone for the presentation, for the demos. Dev, thanks for joining us. We look forward to connecting with everyone in the future. If you'd like to continue any discussions that were started here today, or if you'd simply like to learn more, you can get in touch with us via our website. It's www.techsoft3d.com. And thanks, everyone. We hope to see you very soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.